the next session going, we have Mr. Jatin Khanna, Chief Executive Officer, Sarovar Hotels and Resorts, as the moderator. He's joined on stage by Mr. Ankit Khanna, Chief Product Officer, Make My Trip, Mr. Ghosh, Regional Vice President, India and Subcontinent, Amadeus Hospitality, Dr. Amarjeet Singh, Co-founder and Chief Technology Officer of Zenatix Solutions, Mr. Sidharth Gupta, Co-founder, Tribo Hotels and Hotel Superhero.
Great, thank you. You've already done the introduction, so now this is what I have to say. Thank you, thanks a lot. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us in this post-lunch session. We'll try to keep it lively so that nobody falls off. Otherwise, you can always grab your cup of coffee like you've already done. Thank you, Raji. Thanks a lot. Great. So introduction is already out of the way. We are really discussing today data analytics and artificial intelligence, and how does that drive our business. When I was told that I have to do this session, I was thinking that today one thing we can say comfortably is that data analytics is pretty much part of our DNA in our industry. But are we really into an artificial intelligence stage where we are using it, or are we still in a machine learning stage? And if we are, how is that going to really change in the future? So I really wanted to discuss a couple of these points. But before we get on to the questions, any opening remarks from any of the panelists over here before we get into the questions, please? Joy, anything from you?
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. I think what the pandemic really taught us to begin with is the importance of not looking at past data. Because there was absolutely no relevance to look at last year or last month and get no inference out of it. So forward-looking data is something that people got used to. That's number one. Number two is how is the customer profile changing? I think that's sort of a key learning that hotels took. Workation, leisure, weekends all became buzzwords. So I think these are the two things that I would like to start with, and we have to remember that price is a function of demand. And most people do pricing without looking at their competitors. And what they look at is public pricing, which at the max maybe 10% of their occupancy. How about the other segments? How about the other channels? So let's discuss this in the session as we go along.
Thank you, Joy. Sidharth, anything from your side?
Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, thanks for having me here. I'm often told that I'm only partially a hotelier, not having gone through any formal hotel management education. So it's good to be in a school of hospitality. Maybe I can feel a little bit more of a student here. Jatin, thanks for having me on the panel. What I would like to talk about is really what it takes to be ready to use data properly. I think when it comes to artificial intelligence, the most exciting or the most popular use case of AI is really for it to be a conference topic, right? As opposed to, really kind of going into what AI can do for you. But because I think what all of us need to first be clear about is what does it take to truly be a data-driven organization? And I think a lot of those fundamentals in our industry are not very strong necessarily. So if you'd allow me, I'd like to talk about that a little bit.
Sure, that's part of one of our questions, and I would really like you to talk something live and really in language which is understandable to all of us as hoteliers. As you're not a hotelier, but hoteliers, last night everybody was saying it's not a rocket science, right? So it's not a rocket science, but we'll try and understand. Ankit, any opening remarks from you?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I think from my side, because I come from the distribution side, not from the hotelier, from serving the consumer who's going to stay in the hotel. For us, we are moving towards, I would say, predictive analytics more and more, as compared to understanding the past data only and predictive. And our thoughts are more in terms of what's going to happen with a particular consumer, with a particular hyperlocation, or with a particular city, hotel, set of hotels. We are moving into that direction. AI, I still feel, it's not just limited to our industry. I think for most of the industry, it's still a buzzword, right? So we internally, we don't talk about any specific language limited to the nomenclature, but we talk about use cases and objectives, right? So yeah, that's right. AI is still a little far from our kind of industry. but data is the key.
Great, thank you. Amarjeet, anything from your side?
Yes, so as we were discussing earlier that I'm kind of an outlier here as well, not just in terms of not from the hotelier industry, but also in terms of the kind of data we talk about, right? So the problems that have been discussed through the session since the morning are workforce, limited workforce, energy being a very high cost, so how do you optimize the bottom line? Many customers are now demanding sustainability, better hygiene conditions internally. How do you prevent food wastage, etc. Right? So essentially, a lot of times when data is talked about, it is talked about more in terms of top line. But how can many of these problems, which are actually more severe today than ever before, can be addressed with real-time data that is coming from all your assets, right? It could be air conditioning, lighting, etc. So real physical assets that are being deployed. How do you use that real-time data and then make sense out of it? That's something that I'm going to talk about.
No, that's very refreshing to go away from top line and talk about something which kind of generates other, affects other departments as well. But thank you. Joy, you started by talking about last 2 years. So I just want to first start with last 2 years. And let me start with you, Ankit, first. Obviously, you were probably arguably one of the most prominent channels in last 2 years as to what was happening in and around the world, and especially in India with the pandemic. But now as pandemic is tapering off, what do you see the situation changing for you? And how do you use data or AI to maintain your share of business in future?
Yeah. So when pandemic happened, or maybe things started moving slowly and gradually back to the normal, we were the dominant channel for distribution for this industry, and I think that's probably because of the situation. But what we also did, I think, that we worked very closely with all the hoteliers and made sure that we are trying to understand what consumer wants at that point of time, and together we were able to offer that. Also, I think what this entire pandemic led to is higher digital penetration all across the board. It's not that only few industries, whether it's grocery, food, or maybe healthcare, saw that. I think every industry saw that, including ours. And that's where I think was the turning point for us and for our hotel partners. Now, if we look back last 2-3 years, I think in terms of percentage, you may say that we still don't have that much share in terms of penetration for each hotelier, but we are far in a better situation as far as the absolute numbers are concerned. I think we are driving more and more new consumers who have booked through us to these hotels. We complement the hotels rather than we compete, and we make sure that we are able to understand in real time what the consumers are searching or demanding, in which hyperlocation, which city, what kind of things they need. I think with pandemic, one thing happened, that people have now open to more all-inclusive meals plans as compared to just going and staying in a hotel and then going to a city for just visiting the city and just using hotel for a night stay. I think a lot of those things have changed, and that's what we are trying to bring that knowledge to us, and then obviously in a more usual form, giving it to the hoteliers as well.
So look, I'm going to hold on to your word of complimenting the hotels, and I'll come back to you on that a little later, and we'll talk more about that. Joy, technology adoption, has always been a little slow in our hospitality industry. Last 2 years, sticking to still last 2 years, how did the pandemic really change the situation for you? And how do you see hotels reacting to data-driven solutions to improve their business in future?
So, as I said, in the last 2 years, the profile of a customer has changed. For example, we at Amadeus have a policy of work from anywhere. So, how do you enable hotels for these digital nomads? What exactly do they do? Because the conventional segmentation, pricing, etc. is not going to work. So, we are working with our customers to enable them to address this new breed of customers who are adding a holiday after their business trip, and what kind of personalization is required, what kind of pricing is required, because the usual peaks and troughs in the hotel business that we are all used to is kind of melting away. So that's one of the things that we do. And also as a company, I think we are in a unique position because we operate airline IT, we operate airports, we also do a lot of work with hotels. And the buzzword for us is forward-looking data. So the minute we offer somebody a leading indicator of what is airline capacity or airline demand for the next month or the next quarter or the next half year, and then allow them to plan that this is what's probably coming in, this is how the graph is shifting. So hoteliers have a lot of data to base their actions on. And also we added a lot of process automation software. We heard a lot about manning 1:2, 1:1, etc. But do hotels really know how much time it takes to clean a room and how can that efficiency be improved? So we are working on technologies like that, but for a layman hotelier, I think it's also important to understand simple things like going and wishing happy birthday to every customer who have walked in through their doors is as important, and giving a small offer. And that's not going to impact your rate parity or any of that stuff that you are worried about. So these are the things that we have understood during the pandemic. We are working hard and with our hotel partners, with our customers, and that's the way forward for us.
Okay, great. So that you started by saying you're not a typical hotelier with still 870 hotels, which is absolutely great. So let me ask you this. You wear two hats, one of a hotelier and one of providing solutions through development of your own IPs. I really wanted to ask you, what will it take? You spoke about data initially, What will it really take for us to harness data, create guest experiences, and majorly retargeting customer on their buying behavior, which will enhance your performance, drive business incremental revenues? What do you have to say about that?
So if I could, Jatin, focus on the first part of the question, because I think once you've got the right setup in place to use data, then what purpose you use it for could be very many, right? We spoke about on the cost side, on the retargeting, guest, all of that can then follow. But maybe, it's anyway a post-lunch session, so let me try and make it a little bit interactive. If I could ask the audience here, what is the form in which you all consume data of your hotel? What's the form? How do you see and use data of your hotel? How does it come to you? What do you look at? Anyone? Really? Reports that probably come from Opera. Is that by and large the case for everyone? And what format are these reports in? A PDF? And I'm assuming for those of you who have large hotels and big teams, often these are actually left on your desk as printouts, right? For the previous day, for the previous week, MTD, etc. And I think that is the area where probably the thought needs to start, because a PDF report is indeed good as a report when you're looking at some standard metrics, often primarily used by finance because they want to keep a check on everything is okay or not, etc. I would submit humbly that, those standard PDF reports generated day on day, week on week, will do only little for you to truly be a data-driven hotel or a data-driven organization, because you're actually not harnessing the power of the data that you have beyond those reports. Right? Those are standard fixed reports which are reporting the standard fixed metrics, which probably some of your people will know by heart anyway. I think data insights come from having a very strong data visualization tool, a data analytics tool, and a data analytics tool needs to sit on top of a good data warehouse. Now, some of these might seem like technical terms, so let me just simplify if I can take a few seconds.
Absolutely.
I think the most important requisite, according to me, for truly being intelligent about data is for you to have systems that aggregate all your data in a single place. It is literally a data warehouse where any and all forms of metrics, right? Whether it's the basic metrics of ARR, occupancy, but really broken down into the minutest form, every single reservation, every single guest detail. All of this data gets aggregated in a backend tool, which is referred to as a data warehouse. And again, you don't need to create it or worry about it. Your technology provider should be readily giving it to you, right? depending on who you are using, you should ask them this question: where is the data warehouse for this, right? So that's the first step. On top of this, you need a tool, a data analytics tool or a visualization tool. You might have heard of names like Tableau, you might have heard of Power BI from Microsoft, you might have heard of Metabase. There are several data visualization tools available in the market. On top of which you will write, as they say, write the queries, the technical queries, which can generate whatever data dashboard, whatever data view you want to see. So you should not be necessarily limited with the standard PDF report that you're looking at. Rather, you should be able to tell your team, hey, this is okay, but can you give me a different cut? I want to see the comparison between, let's say, last Thursday and this Thursday. And I don't mean like a week on week or whatever. And I want to see only the data for those customers who have stayed at our hotel for more than 5 times in the last 1 year. I want to see what is their average consumption pattern, let's say, right? Just because you want to probably launch a slightly higher benefit for those loyal customers. Now, chances are that those standard reports will not allow you to do that. Data needs to be on demand. It needs to support whatever little bright idea or thought you have in your head, rather than that bright idea getting limited by that little PDF report in front of you. And the only way of doing that is to have this analytical tool. You know, I was amazed. I was talking to Megha yesterday at dinner, and we were discussing exactly this thing, that in our industry, unfortunately, when we say data, we immediately think those PDF reports. That's a report. It's not analytics, because it's static, because it is designed by someone else, because it's not on demand. Whereas if you are using a more new age PMS, a more new age reservation system, CRS, they should all be talking to a central data warehouse. It should include loyalty, it should include point of sale, it should include PMS, CRS, all of those things, and create that warehouse on top of which you put this tool. You'll be surprised, and I'll shut up after this, I promise.
That's
You'll be surprised that in a tool like Power BI, I don't know if any of you have experienced some of the latest capabilities in the world of data visualization. Data visualization is nothing but giving you the data in the format you need. Very simple, right? What data you need, not what that PDF has. You now have the provision where you, as the CEO, would literally type no technical queries, no SQL queries. You will go to a search box where you will type, I want to see room revenue of Sarovar A, Sarovar B, Sarovar C for the last Thursday of every year, last 5 years. You will literally type that as text, and the tool will be smart enough to pull out a report, a beautiful looking dashboard, which will give you that comparison. So the point is that one, I think, missing piece of infrastructure in hotels usually, we stop at PMS, CRS, because these are guest-facing tools. Of course, we care about them. But unless you have that warehouse and a data visualization tool sitting on top of it, we'll only go so far by looking at those static PDF reports, and all of our bright ideas will not find the support of data. So I think those are the two most critical pieces of technology that all hotel companies need in this day and age.
Can I add a point?
Yeah, sure.
I think you've made some very good points, but we have to be really mindful of what a typical hotelier is dealing with. And I think the heart of the problem is that in any hotel, you just go to any hotel company, they have 40 different kind of technologies which
that's a problem.
Compiled over the years, and they don't talk to each other.
Absolutely.
And every IT guy anywhere is fighting this battle how to make silo number 1 talk to silo number 36 and a half.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so you need a provider who is trying to create a box, whether it is on property or above the property, and to converge all the solutions out of one box.
Absolutely.
I mean, at the cost of sounding like a sales pitch, we are doing it. And
no, I'm glad. I think I did a favor. I did a sales pitch for Amadeus, and you've just done one for Hotel Superhero. So
thank you.
So let me also guess the 41st application now. Let me get Amarjeet also in this conversation before we lose him. So Amar, everybody's talking these days about IoT and data analytics, and that's what we've been discussing from the last 15-20 minutes. How do these technologies really come together, which is what Joy was referring to, and how can they deliver value in hospitality? You're doing quite a bit of work in this space now, right?
Right.
Yeah.
No, I think that's a very, all the data that was talked about so far was customer-facing data, right? But let's say, how many of you have been involved in discussions that the energy bills are high, right? How many of you have been involved in discussions that the manpower is in shortage, right? And skilled manpower is in shortage, right? How many of you have been involved in discussions wherein you may have multiple properties across geographies, but now how do you have real-time visualization into how those properties are being operated, right? Are you maintaining the right temperatures for the customers? Are you maintaining the right temperatures in the freezer so that there is little of food wastage? How is the temperature in common areas, whether it is lobby or common areas across different floors, varying across the day, right? And are you keeping it too cold, too warm? Is it okay for the customer? Now, many of the customers are demanding sustainability, right? Can perhaps, let's say, for example, just for the sake of argument, can Make My Trip, when they show all the hotels, can they also show what is the current PM levels in the real time in those hotels? And perhaps I'm willing to pay 100 rupees or 500 rupees more for a hotel which has a better PM levels than a hotel which has a lower PM levels, right? Because customers are now demanding hygiene, right? So there is a whole lot of data that should be generated from the back-end operations, energy related, air conditioning related, because all of these things relate to customer comfort. Your bottom line, how do you optimize that energy consumption? And that's where what is called as IoT, Internet of Things, comes into picture, right? That you start getting real-time data about both the inputs and the outputs. The input is electricity, and the output is, let's say, temperature you are maintaining, whether it is freezers or air conditioning, etc. Right? So if you are getting the data for both the input and the output, then you can, and that data is then given to you in the form that you can consume. So what is that form? Can you see what is your energy consumption per occupied room on a daily basis, right? Perhaps none of the reports today give you that, right? Can you see, again, a heat map of your whole hotel property, right? Can you see that, okay, you have a lot of assets for your air conditioning, starting from your chillers to pumps to air handling units to the fan coil units, ceiling suspended units, etc. How are they performing? Which of them really need maintenance? Because now you have manpower that perhaps is not very well trained, but if you are getting real-time alerts about which asset needs maintenance at what time and whether that maintenance was done properly or not, all these things are feeding back eventually into customer comfort, right? Customer experience, right? So those back-end operations which were previously sort of very, very opaque, the moment you start getting real-time data and start generating insights which are meaningful, energy consumption, tickets, automated anomaly detection. So this is where perhaps actually AI is actually feeding in, right? The real-time data, millions of data points feeding in from across your assets get fed into algorithms that tell you, okay, this asset needs maintenance, and perhaps a ticket automatically gets generated, right? And now you have 20-odd properties across the country, and you have tickets classified into energy, environment, and equipment. You can see that which property has how many tickets across any of these categories open at any point of time. You just open the dashboard, you see the real-time visualization. How many of those tickets took 2 hours, 6 hours, 12 hours, more than a day to service them, right? All those things are then meaningful insights to also make sure that you are managing your properties with perhaps people who are not very well trained, which is the problem today, but at the same time ensuring that you are not compromising on the customer comfort and the quality of the environment that you are providing to the customer. So that is the kind of technology sort of we talk about, and which is where the IoT sort of starts coming in.
Great. And if I'm not wrong, you've already done this with Sammy Hotels, right?
Yeah, so we have actually done it across now 70 odd properties across the country, and they vary from 3 to 5-star hotels as well. And the good part is that while the larger properties like a 5-star may have a building management system, which is what may perhaps do part of it, 3 and 4 star properties.
Sure.
Many of them don't have it.
Okay.
So we are agnostic to what the systems already have. So like he said, if there is already a building management system, we simply sit on top of it. There is no point replacing what already exists and rather integrate with that and not be the 41st system but be the 37 and a half or sit
Great.
on top of that 37 system, right?
Thank you.
If there is no BMS, then we start putting in that very affordable, very cost optimized automation system in place so that now you start seeing all your properties with the same metric on a single dashboard, which is web-based, right?
Great.
So irrespective of the size of the property, everything comes on a single dashboard.
Great. Well, thank you. Let me come back to you, Ankit, and hold on to that word of compliment still playing around. How do you really empower or partner or complement independent hotels or small chains to help them drive business? You spoke about predictability. You can now predict. You have tools, and will that really help them in well-informed decisions instead of just getting the share? So you get business share. That is one part which we all understand, but well-informed decision which will help the performance. How are you going to empower the smaller hotels?
Yeah. So first of all, both go in hand. I mean, you cannot become an important distribution channel for any hotel till the time you offer them other than just consumers driving into the hotel, right? Because then only the growth will happen. So the way we look at it, one, there are some core principles that we keep at the heart of it. One, the biggest one is simplicity, because we understand that most of these independent hotels, smaller ones, or doesn't matter which category of the star category it is. I think what they are very used to managing an independent property on their own, right? So when you offer them data, you have to make sure that one is very simple and easy to comprehend, right? We don't give them too much, right? Second, I think another principle is that we make them, we give them insights which are actionable. So we don't give them too many visualizations. We just tell them that, okay, if you do these 5 things right, you will get these 5 things, right? In terms of how your property is shown on our platform, how it is represented, how the consumer is viewing it, right? Third one, we create a feedback loop, right? So whenever we tell them that this is something you need to do and this is what is happening with the property, this is what is happened now and this is the end. This is now the result. So they get more motivated further that okay, I did this or maybe I didn't do this and because of that this happened, right? So it's very hard to say it's interactive, but it's a two-way loop. And the last one, I think most important, most of these independent properties or independent hotels, they are very inward in a way. They know what is happening inside the property, but many properties are located in a much bigger hyper location where there could be 100 properties, right, which are competing with them. Now, how those properties are being understood by the end consumer who is looking for a stay option, it's something I think we are getting good at. I would say we are really good, but this is the path we want to take, where we want to empower that particular hotelier or revenue manager that this is what is happening as of now, or what is going to happen in your next 7 days, 10 days, and all that, and or maybe if the holiday season is coming, what is going to happen in the next 30 days or 60 days. And once you start showing those trends and demand inputs, I think then that will help them to plan not just the pricing. I think pricing is just one part of it, like how do they manage their inventory, what kind of options they created for the end consumer. I think we are doing all of that, and now we are putting it more in terms of different programs rather than doing it one-to-one with the hotelier.
Any hotelier who's not getting those reports or data from MMT, speak to Ankit right after this, please. So listen, see, we are in our last 9 to 10 minutes, so let's try and see if we can cover a couple of more questions, please. Joy, data we were talking about, it's always perceived as expensive, especially when it comes to smaller hotels, smaller markets, tier 2, tier 3. What is the future for Demand 360 for these markets? Do you have a Demand 360 light model ever, or how is it going to be that smaller cities and smaller hotels can benefit from these data?
Not sure about light, but people looking at data definitely have light bulbs on, because without data you have just another opinion. So see, as a provider, our job is to create platform and companies bring data. So we have all the big brands covered. So I would invite you to come and join the platform and then see on a case-to-case basis what makes sense, because we understand hotel P&L very well and the tool is rightly priced. We haven't ever faced a situation where people can't use the tool because of the price. Let me put it that way.
Okay, so that if I ask you the same question, because your hotel size, 22 keys per hotel, how do you really use this analytics tool, which comes at a cost and it does not become prohibitively expensive for the hotel to run? How do you do that?
I think the very short answer is that it has to be done at a corporate, right? So, I mean, for us for sure, because our hotels are just so small and that too in the budget segment. So there's no question of every hotel trying to set up its own, data analytics capabilities. I think it has to be done at a corporate level. And of course, we're in a room full of brands and, even if your portfolio size is, a few dozens of hotels, it totally makes sense. Or if it's, even a large portfolio, it absolutely makes sense to do it at a corporate level and then disseminate those insights or give that access to, let's say, the GMs or to someone in their teams. And these tools are all, by the way, cloud-based tools. They're all web-based tools. They're in fact mobile app-based tools. Mm-hmm. So your hotel's data will literally be on your palm. But I think for that to be ready, the investment and the capability has to be done at the corporate level. And once you do it, it's data is like running water. You'll be amazed. I mean, for all of our hotels, I get live data of all our 870 odd properties, multiple metrics on an app in my phone right now. And I can cut it in slices and dice it the way I like, right? So it's all because of that, cloud-based tool, which itself is powered by, the right technology systems underneath, the PMS, CRS, PMS, all coming together, like Joy mentioned. But yeah, the short answer is it can't be done at a hotel level. It won't be cost efficient. So it has to be at a corporate level.
Right. And Amar, you spoke earlier about all the wastages and all. HLP is one of the big costs. How do you really bring the HLP cost down with whatever technology and IoT you're going to put together? How does that happen for the hotel? Give us some live, simple layman language. How will that happen?
Yeah, if you look at a hotel property, right, it's not a static occupancy property, right? There is occupancy that is varying by throughout the day, over multiple days, and now imagine that it's like a hotel property is a human in itself, right, which is dynamically changing, right, and now you're trying to control that dynamically changing human with some static operations, right, that the set temperature of the lobby should be, let's say, 24 degrees Celsius throughout the day, right? Or the set temperature of this thing should be this, right? So you are trying to sort of manage a dynamic environment with static set points, right? Or at best, what a BMS gives is a way to manually change those static set points, which nobody is going to change, right? Nobody is going to bother. Now, if those set points start changing dynamically, right? Your reception lobby in the night time when the occupancy is very low, can you increase the set temperature by 2 degrees Celsius, right? Perhaps gives you thousands of rupees of saving every day, right? Can you see that a lot of my food wastage is actually happening because I am not maintaining right temperatures in my cold rooms and freezers, right? Today you may see that metric that this is your overall food wastage, but can you relate that with the temperatures being maintained in your refrigerators and cold rooms, and then say that, look, can I maintain maybe 1 degree better, or maybe can I increase that by 1 degree and I still don't incur higher wastage, but I start saving more energy. Your peak season is about to come, and you know that your property will be almost completely full, but you are scared that what if part of my air conditioning comes off, right? Can you look at the live data from all of your air conditioning, and air conditioning is a must today, right? Can you look at the live data from all of your air conditioning to then say that does a sub part of that needs a maintenance today so that I'm prepared for the coming weeks, the Diwali or the New Year season, right? All of those things eventually then start translating into your top line, And if you manage that bottom line, again, another example is, look, I hired a new person to manage the property or a team of few people. Are they doing their job properly, right? Does the number of tickets that I now get in real time, have they increased? Have they remained the same? Have they decreased? If I have to train them, where do I focus my training on? On maintaining the right temperatures, on maintaining the assets, etc. So you start now getting all of those things to make sure that when the customer comes in, you are well prepared, right? And that only can happen when you get these real-time data, but not data being, those millions of data points are not thrown at you, but rather meaningful insights are being derived out of it. And in fact, part of those insights are translated into automated control actions, so that you actually just see that, look, the system did these dynamic controls and I saved X rupees or X percentage of the energy spent was reduced because of these dynamic.
Great. I think that was pretty simple. Joy, when we started, you spoke about how predictability or forecasting revenue has been really tough, especially coming out of this pandemic. What do you see in future? How will data drive that forecast accuracy, especially in F&B space? I think right from the day I've joined this industry, everybody has been talking about F&B forecasting and all. Do you have a tool which can really help drive business in F&B space better? Today, F&B is coming back to almost 50% of your hotel revenues as to what it used to be earlier. Do you have anything on that?
So we are developing a couple of solutions, and our solutions are across the hotel operations. I am not in a position to say anything more than that, but what I wanted to add is that in addition to all the data things that we are talking about, it is as important to look at your competition data than your own data. Because most people are talking about comparing their data with their data, and that means practically nothing, because the job of anybody who is in charge of top line or bottom line is to steal something from competition ahead of time. So how do you do that? I mean, that's the thought that I'd like to leave out for everyone.
Well, we're not going to let you go off so easily. Ankit, let me come to you. Data, you spoke about predictability. Let's keep AI and data analytics on the side for now, and let's talk in a language which we all want to hear. What are next 6 months and next year looking like? What is it that you guys can really predict today? And nobody's telling you that you have to have a crystal ball, but what is the business telling you? How is going to be the business trend in coming months?
Okay, that's a tough one. So the way I think so I'll talk about the changing pattern that we are seeing, right? I think more and more people are moving towards in property stay. I think that's what people are attempting rather than looking for many long vacations outside India. And there are obviously some global reasons for that. So, but keeping those things aside, I think that's one, because when people are looking, now what we have seen in the last 1 month or so, people are looking beyond a month. People are looking for long, people are looking for January, February, March. Those searches are going up. Whether those searches are converting, I think slowly and gradually ramping up. It could be a function of season coming up, but I don't think that's only is the reason. It's just that more people are comfortable in thinking beyond, because I think what pandemic did is that people stopped looking beyond a month, right? People are looking for a week or two. I think now people are looking for a more longer horizon. That's number two. Number three, people are willing to pay for comfort. I think earlier, I don't know whether pricing was, because I'm not too old in this industry, but at least what I know that people are very fussy about pricing. Now people are still fussy about pricing, but they are willing to give more if they can see that, okay, this is what I'm getting from comfort point of view. Because now they are spending more time in the property, right? As far as corporate is concerned, I think this is bound to grow leaps and bounds. There is no question about it. I think work from home, it's fine. I think many technology companies, as Amadeus talked about, that they can work from everywhere. But that's not the case, I think, for many other companies. I think people are now getting that exposure. And the last and the important one, that I think when people are going to stay more in the property, I think we as an industry need to figure it out, and especially as a distribution channel, that how do we enable that exposure to the consumer when they're booking, right? And I can only talk about booking happening on platform like ours because there's no direct connect with the hotel at that point of time. Now, how do we ensure that we are able to tell the consumer, okay, just don't worry about a night stay or multiple night stays with a breakfast, and what all you can do in the property. I think these are 4 or 5 things which come to my mind that we are able to see what's going to happen.
So primarily you're saying booking window is changing, which means that you can look at far out pricing instead of what was happening in last 2 years and your in-house guest experience. Joy, let me come back to you with airlines. We spoke about corporate a little bit, Ankit touched on that. What do you see corporate pace? What is it coming back, and how do you see this data, whatever you have? And even if you don't want to talk about corporate, let's talk about airline traffic load. What is it that you see in terms of their booking window and changing, which is a direct correlation to our business in coming months?
Yeah. So airline is probably at 60-70% pre-pandemic, and the entire load of incoming inbound foreign traffic has not yet come back to where it should be. But I think it should get to the 2019 levels in the next quarter. That's the way I see it. And if you look at the GDS threshold, GDS is also at 60-70% of pre-pandemic, which tells you very clearly that corporate business is coming back.
So 60-70% is actually a good number. And is this led by local domestic revival or international is coming back?
International is coming back.
Okay, great. So look, we're almost there on our time. Let me just start with Amar, if you have any closing comments, and then we can ask if there are any Q&A from the audience, please.
Sure. I'll just touch upon one aspect of cost that you mentioned, cost about the data. And I think what is important and what we have tried to do, at least in our domain, is create some tiered products, right? So you may get a taste of the kind of data because it's a new kind of data we are talking about. You may get a taste at a very low cost, but then of course the benefits are limited. But the ROI is, let's say, a couple of months, 2 months, 3 months is the ROI we are talking about. So you can create different tiered structures when it comes to data analytics, especially the new technology that is being rolled out with insights, etc. And slowly sort of get the end user hooked that yes, this data is of benefit, these insights is of benefit, so let me take one more step, and then slowly reach where I really want to be. So perhaps those tiered strategies when it comes to data analytics, AI, etc., so that at least you start tasting the blood, at least would be useful in this case.
Well, that's great. So not only just tiered, can we do cherry picking as well?
Yes, you can actually do that. You can say that I only want to talk about energy and not temperature, or only temperature and not energy, or only the CO2 and PM levels and not that. So those sort of then create, even within those tiered structures, cherry picking as well.
Great, thank you. That's very informative. Ankit, anything from your end?
Yeah, so just probably would add to what Joy was saying about, because we do set flights also, right? So we're a comprehensive travel platform. So one thing we have also seen that as far as the demand is concerned, it's a lot linked with air prices, that how expensive it is to travel, and especially not to South India and vice versa, where you have to cover the longer distances. And that has also led to more, as far as airfares go up, the demand goes down in certain pockets. I think that is also becoming a norm in the travel now, which was not the case earlier.
Thank you. Sidharth, any closing comments?
Oh, quick self-serving one line and more of an appeal to the industry to be open to what's out there in the technology world, look beyond the obvious options. And obviously it will involve taking a little bit of risk, but then how else will innovation happen? So
you're saying don't get into man versus machine, trust. Yeah, okay. Joy, anything? Any final comments?
In God we trust, rest everybody brings data to the table.
Awesome, great, thank you. Any questions from anybody before we let, please, how can I forget Srijan?
So I have a question for all of you. You guys spoke about technology. What about guest data privacy? How do you confirm and ensure that the guest data is secure and not that it's shared with third party? How do you ensure that it is maintained by third party and not shared
Sidharth, maybe you want to answer that? Is that okay with you?
Sure. I think any good technology solution, you should ask for what are their security certifications. I can speak for ourselves. We are ISO 27001 certified, GDPR compliant, PCI DSS certified. As individual hotels or groups or clients, it will be very hard for you to independently ascertain the data security levels of any technology solution. But you can ask the right questions in terms of, hey, show me what are your data security certifications? Are you having these compliances or not? Because the process of going through these compliances is pretty difficult. And therefore, you can be sure that anyone who brings those certifications would have taken care of data security.
And regulatory bodies like RBI, etc., is making it extremely difficult for people to peddle data if that's what you are worried about. It's almost impossible now.
Great. Thank you. Listen, we're really at the end. Alan, I know you put a couple of questions over and Stuart also. Anybody maybe off stage, you guys can take up these questions with Alan and Stuart, please. But thank you. Thanks a lot. Thank you to all four of you. Thanks a lot. Thank you.